SMT Nation, we back. Nation, I just made the video about T-Mobile and the US Cellular assets and what they would want and what they're probably going to get out of it and all those things, you know, based on the Wall Street Journal article. Now I'm going to do the Verizon video. All right, I'll go ahead and link this for you guys here. This is from Drew over at the Wall Street Journal. Link in the description. Ways to support us can be found there as well. Please do like and share this video. Subscribe if it's your first time here. And turn on the bell notifications icon to never miss an upload from the SMT. All right, people. So T-Mobile wants to spend $2 billion in assets on what US Cellular has. US Cellular appears to be on a fire sale. They're just trying to get out of the industry. So if T-Mobile spends $2 billion, well then, in my estimation, that just means T-Mobile wants to buy their low band, their 600 megahertz. Could they be looking at more? I don't know. It just depends on what the value of that spectrum is. I mean, obviously, T-Mobile knows they don't want to pay full price for it, knowing that it's on a fire sale. So with that being said, I don't think Verizon's looking at this any different. I think Verizon's looking at it the same way. They're not looking to pay full prices for the spectrum. They're going to look to get a deal. I also want to throw in a couple of important things. There are assets here that line up pretty nicely for Verizon, right? There's some 850 megahertz. There's some AWS, right? There's probably some band 2 in there. You know, there's some CBRS. There's some C-band. There are frequencies that make sense for Verizon. Verizon is not really interested in low band per se, maybe the 850, because they do deploy that across the country in certain spots and locations, and there's precedence for that. And if T-Mobile's in the later stages of acquiring $2 billion in assets, that means Verizon's probably got a lot that they can choose from, and it looks like Verizon's coming in kind of as the second player in this deal. And so there's precedence of T-Mobile acquiring low band from Columbia Capital and Comcast and holdings companies and leasing it from Dish and all these other things. Verizon's not interested in 600. Verizon's going to be interested in mid-band and deeper bandwidth channels of it. If you're going to be paying big money for spectrum, you want return on investment. Verizon is going to be looking at this from, we need to monetize the mobile network and the fixed wireless access network, right? So 5G home internet. You can't do that type of stuff with low band. You don't sell home internet on low band frequencies with skinny channels. Verizon is looking at a few key components here. It's the C band, so the 3 gigahertz frequencies. It's the AWS supplements, because we're talking about bandwidth that's going to be 20 megahertz or more, right? So the C band is probably something that Verizon is looking at. Now, keep in mind, Verizon does have a lot of debt. A lot of the companies in telco do. So they're going to be very strategic. That's why it says in the title, Verizon, T-Mobile in talks to carve up US Cellular. They don't want the customers. They don't want the stores. They don't want the towers. Those are assets they don't want and don't need. What they want is the spectrum. Folks, the carriers have been complaining and belly aching about not having enough spectrum. Their network in some places can be congested because of high data usage and patterns of usage. They just want the spectrum. And we have to see like what's going to be regulated, how it's going to be regulated. I could tell you right now, Verizon will not be heavily regulated in this transaction. They will not. T-Mobile will. Verizon will not. And the reason for that is because Verizon has been playing nice. Verizon, if you guys haven't been paying attention, has been moving with religion. And actually, I would say that since Hans Vestberg started there, the CEO, they have been a very different company. There was a time where Verizon moved pretty savagely, and they're just not the same anymore, right? They seem to play a lot nicer. They're just not, in my opinion, going to be regulated aggressively. They've been quiet. They haven't opposed anybody. Like, look at what AT&T just did with the spectrum in Hawaii, you know, and T-Mobile had to settle and all those things. Verizon doesn't do those types of things. I don't think there's going to be any issues. I don't think Verizon's going to get regulated. I think they're going to get whatever spectrum they want and are willing to pay. I just don't know which assets specifically and how much they're willing to pay for it and how much they're going to spend. Because right now, Verizon is looking at, you know, reducing expenditure, you know, looking at the balance sheet. They got debt to pay, but they will never turn down a good deal on spectrum. Think about what they paid for mmWave. Think about the assets in CBRS. Think about what they did with C-band. If it's going to be able to monetize over the network, they will spend the money. If it's not, they don't want it. I think that's become abundantly clear. I also want to throw in, cable providers are likely not going to push back on Verizon getting spectrum because Verizon plays nicely with those companies. Comcast and Xfinity, Charter with spectrum. They support them. They give them wireless network access, right? I don't think AT&T is going to push back and oppose. There's no precedence of that. The trouble, really, for Verizon, I don't see any. I don't even think T-Mobile has a leg to stand on. They can't really oppose it either because T-Mobile's been getting whatever the hell they want, right? Basically, whenever and wherever they want, and agencies have just kind of let it all happen. I think it's Verizon's turn. I think that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to take place. What's your take on all this? Sound off in the comment section below. You're the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard.